you.
Okay, so we can start. I will say Kalimera to our Greek friends and good morning to our US people that are attending from US. Thanks for being with us today. I'm here with my friend Sherry. We are more than 20 years friends and partners, and I'm very happy that we can do that in person.
Yes.
From her office in New Hampshire. So, Sherry, do you want to say hello to?
Yes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful collaboration between Mary's organization and our organization. My name is Sherry Malouf. I've been training globally in human development for 35 plus years. We focus on the Positive Parent Influence Program in a lot of organizations, which builds very strong leadership. I have a PhD in human development as well. And there was a big chunk of that I focused on neuroscience. So,
Okay. So, Sherry, the PPI, the Positive Parent Influence, is a real legend. Is something that has changed people's lives. I would say not only business lives, because even personal lives. And the model that we are using there for more than 50 years, it's in the market.
yes.
Something like that. It's really very impactful in leadership and in relationship. So now you are moving, I understand, to a new era. You are in a new phase of the business life and personal life, I would say, because this goes together. And you are creating this new sales program for salespeople. Tell us more about TANIS and what made you create that program.
Well, I was really curious about neuroscience when I was doing my PhD. And one of the things that kept coming up is the idea of intuition. And as it relates to relationships. And so I thought, well, let's look into intuition a little bit and see what the research is. And up popped a bunch of articles about research that had been done on the use of intuition in the sales process. And that really got me curious because it talked about the combination of both using intuition and adaptability. So when people are very adaptable in the sales process, they're much more successful as salespeople. They're using their intuition to say, okay, what do I need to do next? How do I need to interact with this person? And I thought that was very powerful. And one of the things that I really work on with people is helping them understand how to create different behavioral patterns.
Okay, so you're mentioning intuition and neuroscience. These are the two things that you are talking about that program, and you are using that methodology in order to help people. What is different? There are a lot of sales programs in the market, and people are using, I would say, more often they are using their own internal programs to train their people.
Yeah.
What is the added value of that program? What's the difference?
Well, there's a belief out there that you can't train people to be intuitive.
Okay.
Which I thought, oh, interesting. You can't train people to be intuitive, but you actually can. When you look at the literature on intuition and what is intuition, how do you define intuition? How do you measure it? It's actually based on a couple of things. It's based on long-term memory, pattern recognition, and the third thing is what they refer to in the literature as FOR, which is a feeling of rightness. So you recognize a pattern, you say, oh, I should do this next based on that pattern. And that's your gut coming out and going, okay, so that's that feeling of rightness. And you have neurons all over the place, right? So you've got neurons in your brain, you've got the autonomic system, you've got neurons in your gut. So it goes down the full length of your esophagus, all through your digestive system. And you've actually also got 40,000 neurons in your heart.
Okay.
So there's all these places that we can think from that we don't normally think about. Most people are so focused on the head that they don't understand that when you get a gut feeling. Now, this has not been researched because it's difficult to scan that part of the body during research, but there's a possibility that that's what a gut feeling is those neurons telling you, maybe go in this direction. So that's a different way of thinking about an adaptable sales process. That adaptability is definitely dependent, as I said before, on my ability to recognize patterns and say, okay, based on these patterns, this is what I need to do next.
Okay. I understand that the more we are open and inclusive, and we accept differences and diversity everywhere, and in our clients as well, the more effective we are. How is that the bias that sometimes makes us not being inclusive with the client or with everybody, and how this is related to intuition?
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really interesting is there's two networks that really manage our ability to get things done and take care of relationships. And one's called the default mode network, and the other one's called the task positive network. And the task positive network is about, it utilizes the part of our brain that, balances checkbooks, creates budgets, does a project plan, all that kind of thing. And the default mode network is the part of us, I call it the social secretary. So it really thinks about who we're connected with, what's going on, why do they think that? And that's actually where our intuition and our long-term memory resides.
Okay.
And so what happens with us as we're growing up is our brains are formed through experiences. And we mimic people around us. So we learn and are socialized from day one by our families, our schools, our communities, our churches, whatever we're involved in. We slowly build up a whole set of belief systems about how the world operates. And those belief systems can have me reacting to certain people. So for example, I might have this belief about people with red hair, that they're angry people. There's this, because there's this sort of, talk about, the fiery Irish or whatever. But so the problem is that a lot of our beliefs are unconscious. And so the patterns that we recognize are filtered through those beliefs. And so we've got to make ourselves more consciously aware of, why am I doing this? What do I need to do differently? Why did I say that? And so it's becoming the observer. And it's stepping out of my analytical brain and going back into like the top back of my head and just watching myself. Because we've got to get stuff on a more conscious level in order to change it.
Okay. And that can happen and should happen while we are in a sales process. And I understand, because sometimes I see that we go, for example, we have a meeting with a client and we start thinking, oh, it will be like that. You will say, okay, it's a good thing to make a preparation and investigate some different alternatives and things to proceed with the client. But you have to be sure that you are not biased when you make a meeting, and you are confident to succeed, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, and part of what we look at in the program, the Art and Neuroscience of Intuitive Selling, or we call it TANIS, is we actually look at the first 20 seconds of an interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of those assumptions, beliefs, they're automatic. They just happen so quickly. And one of the things that's interesting is to say, okay, let's take an example. We have human beings through survival created this habit of defining who is an us and who is a them. So I pointed to myself when I said a them, but so if I'm if I'm with a customer, if I'm really just pushing my product, if I'm just, pushing benefits, pushing all this kind of stuff, I have my shtick, I have my way of selling. That's what I call my shtick. If I have that in place, then what's happening is I'm actually creating an us versus them right there, because that client is going to feel the pressure. And so then right there, I've created a separation. And it happens very quickly. We can create us versus them on very simple things. It can be body language. It can be something very, very innocuous that we're not aware of, that all of a sudden we've got an us versus them going on. Or we create an us with the two of us, so that takes us to a very different place in terms of the conversation. So it's something that when people learn about this, they understand that I have to manage my emotions in the moment. If I have a drive to win, I have to close the sale. If there's this real intense, because, salespeople are rewarded for closing sales. And a lot of organizations have a process for doing that. But the nice thing about this program is it complements any internal processes that you have. It's just taking it to a different place. It's an add-on. It makes it so that people don't do their shtick. They're more adaptable. They use their intuition, and they understand that I've got to figure out what this person, the buyer, needs from me in the form of information. And how do I provide that information to them? What are they looking for? Some people just want data. Other people want the best deal they can get. Some people want a buddy. And other people want to get excited about where we're going and what's going to happen in the future. And it's like, okay, how does this person want to receive information from me?
Okay.
And how do I figure that out?
Okay, so that's the model that I understand. It's the model that we are using during the methodology, the training methodology. Can you expand a little bit more about that buyer-centric model that you are talking about and how you use it in the training process?
Yeah. So there are certain what we call influence styles, and this is based on the Positive Parent Influence program, that certain people are going to want you to approach them with that type of style. So, like I said, some people really want data, and we call that style the persuading style. Mm-hmm. And so it's, what data are you going to give to them? How are you going to do it? What's your tone of voice? What's your body language? What's the words that you use? So you convey it in that way. And so you have to discover in the beginning part of the conversation, how does this person want to get the data? And so we talk about having 3 questions. And those 3 questions, really the intent and purpose of them are to identify which influence style I need to use with this person.
Okay.
And this is obviously for somebody that we don't know very well. It could be our first time meeting. It could be a challenging person that we've not been able to, really figure out how to influence them. And even with existing relationships, it helps you think about, well, how do I build this relationship in the process? How do I make it stronger? What is it that I need to do?
Okay. We always have questions by clients of how this is related to negotiations, mm-hmm. how influence is related to negotiations. And we know that there are 2 different things, mm-hmm. but they can work together very well. So can you elaborate a little bit more about how influence and this buyer-centric model can make, let's say, can put down the carpet for everything,
the foundation,
the foundation in order to build a very good negotiation and in order to make a good deal to the client?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is that everything like negotiation, team building, project management, all has stages and phases. And there's certain tasks that you need to do in each phase. So there's a process. And the process helps you from a planning standpoint. It helps you know where you are in the meeting. It helps you figure out what you need to do next. It manages emotions So there's a bunch of things that the process does to support people in having a very powerful conversation. What the influence styles and behaviors do is enable you to implement that process.
Okay.
So you've got the process, and then you've got the implementation of that process. And so the behaviors are the power behind the process. Because if you don't have those behaviors, you're not going to get anywhere. You also need knowledge of the client. You need knowledge of the industry. There's a bunch of there's a bunch of, so it's almost like there's three pieces, right? There's the process, whether it's negotiation, team building, project management, sales. There's the behaviors, the influence behaviors, and then there's your knowledge that you bring into it about the organization, industry, all that kind of stuff, which that's what a lot of sales processes that are internal in organizations are about. They collect all the information about the organization. So what this piece does is take that and allow you to use it in the most powerful way possible.
Okay. Talking about salespeople, I think they are the most, let's say, people that they have hard time, because clients change, the markets are difficult. There is the world is changing all the time, and those people have hard time, to know their product, to know their client, to know the market, and they have too many things to consider. What are the basic skills, and what, compared to the challenges, and if you can elaborate more to the challenges that you might have found, what are the challenges and the skills that they need to have?
Well, it's interesting, and this goes back to a little bit of the neuroscience. The brain uses up a lot of energy. It really consumes a lot of energy. And so the brain looks for things to be the same, patterns, just do the same thing. And that's why a lot of salespeople have their shtick. They have their way of selling. They have their process for doing it. They use the same exact thing, no matter who's sitting across the table from them. That's a big problem. And so and the other thing that's kind of interesting piece of research is optimistic salespeople automatically do better.
Okay.
Because people want to talk to somebody that's, hey, how you doing? That's happy. And, so if you have somebody cranky coming in, nobody wants to talk to them. I mean, it's obvious, right? So the biggest challenge is managing your emotions and your needs in the moment, balancing that with the needs of the customer, being conscious and aware of reactions that you're having. Because for example, you walk into a meeting and there's 5 people there and you're expecting 1. Okay. And there's a lawyer in the room. There's, there's, and all of a sudden you're
unexpected things.
Yeah. There's unexpected stuff happening. There's playing tactics with you or playing games with you. Right. Yeah. And so how do you handle that in the moment? How do you deal with that in a way where you're powerful, you're strong, you're solid, and you do what you need to do? So it's that spontaneity and intuition and the adaptability that makes for a very strong salesperson. And you've got to have that, because you're right. There's so much that happens that's unpredictable, and you don't know what you're walking into sometimes, and so you really, really have to have that ability to stay centered and grounded, because part of this is a physical body thing. You have to be very centered and grounded in your body. That is so powerful. One of the things that I was really curious about was you hear about people who in absolutely ridiculously stressful situations stay very calm and are able to, get everybody else in the room calm. Connect, draw people in, and the situation just gets handled in a very different way versus the emotional reaction. And I always was curious about these people. What was it about those people that enabled them to have that power? And it really is this calmness that people have and this confidence. And so part of it is really understanding that your body is your house, right? And you have to have a relationship here. You have to be conscious. You have to make choices. You have to be aware that when you start to react, what do you do in that moment? What I tell people a lot of time is oxygen's your friend. Take a deep breath and sit back. and it shifts you completely. There's little things that you can do that enable you to handle these very, very challenging situations.
Yes, and it's true that salespeople are in a very high energy level of and stress level, so they need to have some techniques to have the self mastery and have their inner, let's say, the grounded part of their self in order to perform in sales. Because the combination of all this information, people, relationships, success factors, makes them nervous, I would say. And okay, what about the audience? We know that we have different levels. We have salespeople in the field, we have supervisors, we have account managers, we have regional managers. We have different levels in a sales organization. And of course, we have different business, B2B, B2C. So how this program is related to this different level of people and different business, I would say.
Well, one of the things that is a powerful way of introducing something like this is to take your top leaders and get them trained in the program. One of the most challenging things we have is when we go in the middle, and then you get people pulled out of the training, you get, all kinds of other demands on the salespeople so they can't focus on the training. So when you have people that understand the power of what we're doing, supporting it from the top down, you're creating a culture in the organization around learning, around really building people to be very powerful and supporting them in the process, because it's a learning process. It changes your culture. It creates a much different environment around sales. And around those interactions that we have both internally and externally. Because one of the biggest problems, if you look at some sort of classic things internally, marketing and sales are always clashing. R&D and sales are always clashing. There's always these internal functions that have a difficult time. And so with this process, you're also able to develop those internal relationships so that there's support internally across functions for whatever the sales strategy is. And you get that clear because you've got a strategic level and then you've got a tactical level. The strategic level is, are we all on the same page? Especially if you have big customers and you've got multiple levels interacting at different levels in the customer organization. Is everybody saying the same thing? Are people on the same page? A lot of times they're not, so it's really saying, okay, how are we approaching this organization? What's the message we need to send to them? And how do we have it be consistent across all levels in the organization? And then you've also got that strategy, the strategic piece is communicated to your internal functions. So you've got the support going whichever way you're going, and then the tactical level is the behaviors.
Okay. So I understand that this program works in two pillars. The one pillar is the cultural part, because we are working with the shift in mindset of salespeople. And the other part is skills and practical tools to use in everyday life. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So can you please elaborate more about the way that we do that during training? What kind of tools, methodologies, things that we are using?
A lot of people have the what.
Correct.
Right? So you've got the what in your knowledge about the organization, knowledge about customers. That's all the what. Okay. We do the how.
Okay.
And the how is we use a tool for people to get feedback on their behaviors. And so that's the first step in self-awareness. It builds people's emotional intelligence because, I have a simple definition for emotional intelligence, which is I can handle the strong emotions of myself and other people. But part of that is awareness, self-awareness, self-regulation. And if I don't understand why somebody's reacting to me in a negative way, then this self-awareness is a powerful piece of the puzzle. So that's everything that we do builds that self-awareness, builds the ability to create new behavioral patterns, and also the ability to recognize those behavioral patterns in other people.
Okay.
So it builds your ability to be adaptable, use your intuition, because a big piece of all of this, again, comes back to pattern recognition, intuition, and being able to shift in the moment.
Okay, that's great. And how this program can be combined to and add value in the internal programs that most of the clients do have their own sales programs because they have customized stuff, case studies and things like that. How this is combined, and
it doesn't go against anything. And obviously, if you have, we have a process that we recommend for the sales meeting, and that's the only place that we'd probably have to play with people on in terms of, well, how do you describe that? How do you do that? How do we blend these together so that it complements everything there? And it's changing agenda items for meetings and that kind of thing. So again, it will complement and build on all the hard work, because it's hard work to build up a sales process. It's not simple. There's so much competition out there. There's so many different ways that people have to think about it, and how do you actually close a deal. And some situations are a lot more difficult. They're very competitive and very challenging. So how do you use this to build strength in the process?
Okay. So if you have to name 3 things that people get as a takeaway from this experience, this learning experience, that I understand can be combined with a lot of things, other things that companies have internally, or some special case studies. What are the 3 things that they can take as a takeaway from this experience?
People are willing to take more risk.
Okay.
Because they understand just exactly what does this risk, result in, what's the outcome there. Higher awareness of what they need to change, like their own patterns and what they do that supports it, because obviously, if they're in the program and doing something like that, they're successful, right? And so this just builds on all their experience and makes them even more successful. So it's understanding my blind spots.
Okay.
Understanding what it is that I need to do differently.
Okay.
And then I think that the third thing is just they're going to close more.
Okay. Close more deals?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the whole point. Close more deals, build strong relationships, self-awareness.
Okay.
Pattern recognition. That's
great.
More than 3.
Yeah, there are more than 3. And I think to build confidence, because it's true that when we have when we have self-mastery and we know ourselves better, we feel more confident in order to face difficult and challenging situations. The more we learn about ourselves and about the other, and the more open we are to hear and to listen to the other person, because listening is one of the most important things, especially in sales. And when we are frustrated and we are not confident, and we lose that part, which is a key selling part, to listen to our client and have the intuition to get the moments of the truth and the signals that our client gives to us. So that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sherry, for that. I don't know if you want to add something more, or we can leave our audience, to
see if they have any questions.
If they have any questions.
Yes. Hi. Sorry about before. I could hear myself on LinkedIn too, and I could hear myself twice. So we do have a question. And so how how can you distinguish the types of buyers, and how can a salesperson influence the different types?
Mhm.
Yeah, so the design of the program, there's a planning guide, and using your knowledge of the buyer, or if you don't have any knowledge, using your knowledge of the industry, we talk about asking 3 questions. And those 3 questions enable you, and sometimes those questions will be different, but basically it's how do they like to receive information? What kind of information are they looking for? What kind of, so for example, what I was saying is, some people just want data. So what data do you have? And how can you create the data or give them the data in such a way that's meaningful to them? So we talk about, making sure that you customize your data to your influence target or your buyer. And then, some people just want a good deal. So in other words, there's a way that the design of the preparation that you do, you figure out which influence style is going to be the best one for them. And then everything you do after that is using that influence style.
Yeah. So the planning guide that you're mentioning is a guide, the guide that we're using for preparation in order to collect all the bits and pieces of information that we have for the environment, for the client, for the situation, and decide how we will approach the client, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so once you've determined what influence style you think is going to be best for them, then whatever you're pitching, you use the language, energy, tone of voice, body language, everything that goes along with that influence style. So you've got to figure that out, and so you'll have your pitch figured out. And, if you really are unsure ahead of time, you can create 4 different pitches, right? So in each influence style, how would you put that forward? So you can plan it that way. You can be ready. So whichever one it seems to be the right one, that's the one that you're going to use. So there's different ways to prepare for it and really be ready to be adaptable in the moment.
To the different buyer personalities.
Yes. Based on that question, I would like to ask you, Sherry. What you're describing is when you have the time to make a preparation, and you have. It reminds me big accounts that you have to be prepared in order to go and close a deal. What about people that are in the field? How we can help them during that process? People that see the consumer and the client in the desk, or in a shop, or how we can help them during that process. So when they don't have the time to make that preparation because it's not the situation.
So part of the process is getting people trained up on pattern recognition. Mm-hmm. So you got to practice. Any skill needs practice, right? So you get practice using the planning materials, and then what happens is that's another layer of intuition.
Okay.
So once I've practiced this and I've got this new set of patterns in my knowledge base,
okay,
then I can intuitively move through it. Because the process you can do in 5 minutes, and you can do it in 5 hours, and you can do it in 5 months, right? So it really depends on the situation and the scenario. But part of the whole process is retraining how people think, their assumptions, their beliefs, and creating new models of pattern recognition.
In relationships. So both people that are prepared for a B2B, let's say, deal, or people that are in the field and they have to deal with a client spontaneously, they build the mindset, to understand how they can face the challenges, the everyday challenges, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There is a book called Outliers, and in that, they claimed that in order to be a virtuoso, they studied the Beatles and all this kind of stuff, you have to have 10,000 hours. And I watched this YouTube video of this guy, and he says, you don't need 10,000 hours to get good at something. And so his goal was to see how long it took him to learn to play the ukulele.
Okay.
And he came up with 20 hours. So again, you've got to have achievable goals. You've got to say, what's it going to take to get me to this place? Because you've got strengths, you've got weaknesses, you've got all kinds of potential for developing yourself and making yourself stronger. But, again, the organization needs to make it a priority that people are allowed to learn the process.
Yeah. Okay.
That investment pays off in the long run.
True. Okay.
Okay, so we have another question. Let me read it to you. Do you see a fruitful interaction with the client or partner as successfully going beneath layers of political correctness and folk kindness, you being the one to dare to do it first, but gradually enough not to freak them out? That's my personal way. So that's a question from Anthony.
Well, hi, Anthony. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that gets in the way, right? There's, like you say, there's, the correctness. There's politics. There's very aggressive situations, and so yes, I think being authentic, being calm, coming to people in a very balanced way. So balanced with head, heart, gut, and grounded, creates a much different environment when you walk in and talk to people. And it does cut through, a lot of the stuff that just makes it hard to have conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
I don't know.
Does that answer the question, Anthony?
He hasn't posted something yet, so
okay.
I hope it does. So, we don't have any more questions. I don't see any questions. So, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah. Okay.
See, Anthony came back. See what I did there? Did it to you.
There you go. Nicely done.
Okay, so if we don't have any questions, maybe we can say goodbye to our friends.
Maybe we can sign off.
Yes, and this was the first, let's say, that was really the launch of our TANES, the new sales program for Europe, I have to say.
Yeah.
And we are very happy for that and looking forward to meet more people and answer to more questions that they might think.
Yeah.
After this awareness.
Yeah. Feel free to contact us on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. If you want to have a conversation with either of us or both of us, let us know.
And more things are coming. We will have more things to present and to share with our friends and clients and whoever is interested.
Good. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Sherry and Mary, for waking up early in the US to be with us.
That was an hour here, not half an hour.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone who joined, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Have a great day. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye, Christy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.